They're putting booklets in the game cases again? Oh, we are so back. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be taking a look at the Switch 2 edition of Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar, the remake of a beloved DS classic. Between the booklets being back in cases and the cows possibly being fatter than ever before, this has been one of my most anticipated titles for this year, and I'm so happy to finally be able to talk about it. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, the games released under the Story of Seasons title today used to be part of a franchise called Harvest Moon. So the original version of this game is actually titled Harvest Moon Grand Bazaar. I also want to go ahead and preface this review by saying that while my first Harvest Moon game was on the DS, I never actually played the original for Grand Bazaar. So you won't find me doing too many comparisons to the original version of this game beyond what I've seen from other people's playthroughs of the game. The Harvest Moon game I had on my DS growing up was actually Harvest Moon Island of Happiness, which is actually the game that got me into farming sims and honestly probably part of how I ended up in the wider genre of cozy games. Anyways, with that disclaimer out of the way, let's take a look at Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar for the Switch 2. Out the gate, the game offers a plethora of character customization options, including the option to choose your own pronouns between he, him, she, her, and they, them, which is always a welcome and refreshing option to see being offered in games, especially from major developers. After you've finished character creation, we arrive to meet Felix, the mayor of Zephyrtown, at the town's weekly bazaar. After a brief introduction, the game wastes no time in offering a tutorial for this important mechanic central to the game's progression. Felix offers up some items for us to go ahead and sell. Now, I have to say, the bazaar is easily one of my favorite features of this game. It takes place every Saturday at the bazaar grounds on the far side of town from the farm, and it's here that you'll sell the abundant fruits of your labor at your very own stall. Stock your products, decorate your stall, and when the bazaar opens, get ready to ring your bell and sell, sell, sell. While the bazaar mechanic can take some getting used to, especially once you unlock the ability to have multiple tables, I find it to be a welcome change over just tossing whatever items I manage to get in a day into the shipping bin. With the bazaar, I feel players have more time and freedom to plan out the items they want to craft and cook to sell, offering the chance to yield much higher profits than you might expect early in the game, especially once you unlock the aforementioned stall decorations, which, unlike most decoration mechanics, isn't just for aesthetics. Differently themed items will offer you a bonus to generate even more revenue from your sales, get customers to buy more items, or even offer a boost to the freshness of your stock. The bazaar is hands down one of my favorite gameplay mechanics to date, and I honestly can't decide if I'm sad I never played the original version of this title, or grateful that I didn't get introduced to it sooner, as I'm not sure how easily I'll be able to adjust back to the more standard day-by-day shipping formula that so many farm sims tend to follow for making money. Of course, if you are in need of a quick buck in the middle of the week, you should know you're not completely out of luck. If you find yourself a bit strapped for cash, head over to Miguel's shop in town to sell some of your goods. You won't get as much money as you normally would from selling these items at the bazaar, especially since you'll be missing out on your decoration boosts and trending item pricing, but it is nice to know there is an option if you find yourself in a more desperate situation. On the farming side of the game, I won't waste too much time here. Admittedly, if you've ever played a farming sim, especially other Harvest Moon or Story of Seasons games, you'll probably feel right at home here, with the only new mechanic being the occasional hurricanes, which you'll need to craft windscreens in preparation for so as to not lose your crops. The farming mechanics are kept short and simple without many unfamiliar bells and whistles added in, but honestly I kind of prefer it that way. I don't think there's much you can really do to add on to the existing formula of farming in games that doesn't make things overly complicated or inconvenient. I know farming sims get a lot of grief online for just being generic farming slop, but honestly, I think you're either a fan of farming games or you're not, and if you're not, that's okay, but for those of you who enjoy the simplicity of farming in games, this game will fit right into your collection without much of a learning curve when it comes to the actual farming aspect. Plant seeds, water, fertilize, harvest, take care of your fat little cows and other animals, rinse and repeat. It's simple, and honestly, I don't think that's a bad thing. Of course, farming isn't the only thing to do in this game. There's also mining for ores, crafting goods from your produce and forageables, bug catching, and as you progress, you'll also unlock fishing. Fishing is a mechanic common to these slice-of-life type games. I personally find fishing mini-games fall on a spectrum ranging from nothing burgers like in the Animal Crossing franchise, where it's just simple button mashing. Sure, collecting the fish can be fun, but ultimately the actual task itself is lacking. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, you have games like Stardew Valley that, don't hate me, but I still haven't caught all of the fish in that game after even 100 hours in-game. Grand Bazaar finds itself somewhere in the middle, though definitely closer to the simple side. It's not as simple as just mashing a button, and not as difficult as getting slime out of carpet. Fishing in this entry consists of dropping your line, waiting, and moving the L stick in the correct direction when prompted. I personally didn't mind it, but it wasn't something I was going out of my way to do most of the time either. It was more of a time filler than anything, something to do between story events and waiting for the windmills to be done crafting your 1000th bag of fertilizer. There is one gameplay mechanic I would like to touch on before moving on though, and that would be the new glider. Zephyr Town, as you may have guessed from the name, is often windy, and as it turns out, a glider is the perfect tool to help you zip to and fro in these conditions. Now, personally, I did have a bit of a learning curve with the glider at first, to say the least. It's not always very precise, and controlling where you're going to land can take a bit of practice, but once you get it down, admittedly, this tool is super helpful for helping you get across town in a hurry, provided that the wind forecast for the day allows it. Now, changing gears from the gameplay to the story, Grand Bazaar keeps things relatively light, which is what we can generally expect from Story of Seasons in most instances, and that's also not a bad thing. The game definitely leans into the slice-of-life charm, choosing to keep its story mostly focused on your growth of the bazaar and your relationships with other characters, as well as their relationships with each other. It was actually the friendship between two NPC characters that made me finally able to choose who to romance, because I was having the worst case of bi-panic trying to choose between these two. However, a scene I unlocked between June and Sophie led to me having the headcanon of them being in a relationship, and I just wasn't willing to come between them. What can I say? I'm a sucker for the goth one being in love with the sunshine one. On that note, though, I do have to take a moment to just gush about how much I love the character designs in this game. Don't get me wrong, I feel like most of the Story of Seasons and Harvest Moon games historically have had pretty fantastic character design, but I really have to give it to Grand Bazaar here. The designs in this game are so incredibly detailed, cohesive, and easy to look at. I genuinely love every design in this game, even the background NPCs and shopkeepers who you don't generally spend much time socializing with. Other games in the franchise have had good character design, but Grand Bazaar has great character design, and I can't help but love every single design in this game. Like I said, I had a very hard time choosing who to romance, and if it weren't for the scenes between June and Sophie, I'm not sure if I would have even been able to pick before getting this video posted. And, speaking of characters, where the DS version of the game had some limited voice clips, Grand Bazaar for the Switch and Switch 2 features a full voice cast for all of the story events.
What did you think? You'd be hard-pressed to find a town more tranquil than ours.
And I think the voices chosen for each character are delightful and talented. With every new character I heard speak, I was unsurprised by how they spoke, because they sounded exactly how I would expect them to sound, and they really managed to hit the sweet spot between natural and stylized, something I can't always say when it comes to casting choices for games and shows. Overall, while I never played the original version of this title on the DS, Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar on the Switch and Switch 2 feels very fresh. And I'm a bit scared to play the original now that I've been so spoiled with this version of the game. As a longtime farming sim enjoyer and Harvest Moon and Story of Seasons veteran, I don't feel uncomfortable saying that this game has officially claimed its spot as my favorite entry to the franchise, and it may be my favorite farming sim game in general to date. From the gameplay mechanics to the character designs, the voice cast, and even the little Easter eggs referencing my first ever Harvest Moon game, Grand Bazaar is fun, fresh, and addicting. I went to turn off my recording software one night just to be completely shocked that I had dumped 3.5 hours into this game in one sitting. This game is easily one of the most engaging entries in the series to date, and I think whether you're a longtime fan of the franchise or just starting to dip your toes into the farm sim genre, I would easily recommend this title to anybody who is interested. What about you guys? What's your favorite farming sim? Feel free to let me know down in the comments below, and while you're there, if you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like, and consider checking out some of my other videos or subscribing. I post about once a month on my current schedule, and I talk about games not just from major studios, but also games that have teams with a staff you can count on one hand. I also talk about Steam demos and occasionally my art, so if those are the things that interest you, feel free to check out my work. Until next time, stay cozy.